General Sabastiano Di Revello is the brutal military dictator of the fictional country Medici in Just Cause 3, and he gained such power 20 years prior to the game through a very complex plot, which is what today's video is about. But before we look into his plot to take over the country, we first have to go all the way back to the beginning of his military career. As we know, Di Revello is very narcissistic and mentally unstable. In fact, so mentally unstable that the doctor that was testing his mental state to see if he was mentally stable enough to join the army wasn't even supposed to give him the pass because of how insane he was. However, he ended up using said insanity to get past, i.e., threatening to kill the doctor if he didn't give him the pass. Di Revello rose up the ranks in the army quite quickly, due to his narcissistic ways as well as his military skill. For example, his drill sergeant, Dushku, was an alcoholic, and Di Revello took advantage of this by bribing Dushku with alcohol in exchange for granting him admittance into the officer training program, which would grant him a very powerful position both in the army as well as in the government, as soon as his training had completed. Di Revello also gained popularity within his boot camp and with his drill sergeant by betraying his friend named Benet. Benet was a fellow recruit in the boot camp, and Di Revello pretended to be his friend, even though in reality Di Revello had no interest in making friends and merely wanted to use Benet. One day, Di Revello put a certain poison in Benet's food, which made him aggressive and incited him to attack the drill sergeant Dushku. This attack left Dushku scarred for life, and Benet being put to death by Di Revello. Di Revello was then considered a hero within the boot camp for his bravery, even though that this was his plan all along, to gain influence within the camp. Eventually, Di Revello became a general in the army of Medici, which gave him a lot of power both in the army and the government. However, this was not enough. Di Revello had plans to replace Medici's democratic government with a military dictatorship, with him on the top, of course, and he conducted said plot about 20 years prior to Just Cause 3. This is how it went. Di Revello purposely incited a mutiny in the Medici army, which was led by two ex-army officers, De Luca and Di Revello's former drill sergeant, Dushku. A few months later, this insurgency has caused mass chaos and anarchy across the entire country. And because of this, Dante, the president at the time, was becoming extremely unpopular, and the elections were nearing, so it would have been very likely that his rival, Rosa Manuelia, would have won the vote. In order to gain his popularity back, he had to defeat the insurgency, and he gave this job to General Di Revello. Di Revello did crush the insurgency. However, President Dante was captured and executed by the rebels during this time. However, this was also part of Di Revello's plot, so this was not a problem for Di Revello. Although Di Revello did crush the insurgency, the country was still in total chaos, and because of this, he convinced the government to declare a state of emergency, which cancelled the election and imposed martial law over the people, and gave Di Revello emergency powers over the government. And eventually he used said powers to abolish the democratic government and to become the nation's sole ruler. He also arranged the massacre of thousands of people during his takeover to ensure that he would be able to take over the country with no opposition. After the insurgency was defeated, Dushku and De Luca were arrested and executed. And Rosa did find out about Di Revello's plans to take over the country, however she had no way of preventing it, so instead she exiled herself into South America. And that is how Di Revello took over the Mediterranean country of Medici. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this video made learning this a lot easier for you. If it did, I'd really appreciate a like on this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.